Part 172. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 1711. Chapter 1711. You were silent and moving. Zhong Siya gained confidence when she saw her mother, and glared at Nangongyu triumphantly. Nangongyu stood up slowly and said, "Mrs. Huo, please take a seat." Zhong Siya saw that she had not yet spoken out to give Nangongyu a lesson, so he tugged her hand dissatisfied. Zhong Yun was about to speak when she heard Nangongyu's gentle inquiry, "Mrs. Huo, what do you like to drink?" She treats others with a smile, is polite and decent, and is totally indistinguishable. Zhong Yun had to hold back the stinging lines she had prepared in her heart, and had no choice but to change to normal conversational words. "Are your parents okay? Thank you for thinking about me, both elders are well. Oh, say hello to them if you have time, they are old acquaintances after all." "Thank you," Yuer will definitely convey Mrs. Huo's words to them. Zhong Yun then realized that she had whispered about Nangongyu. She has never seen a person like Nangongyu, who acts shrewdly and shows her best temper, without making people think that she is deliberately putting on a show. Such a girl is the daughter of Nangong Luo and Gongqin Li. It is really unimaginable that those two people had such out-of-character personalities and could give birth to such a quiet child. "Mommy, why are you telling her this? Do you know how she bullied your daughter just now? She actually wants the shares of our Huo family." "What? If you don't believe me, ask her yourself, it's simply shameless." Hearing the vulgar words blurted out by Zhong Siyu, Zhong Yun immediately scolded her with a straight face, "Yuer, sit down quietly." Zhong Yun attaches great importance to face, especially when there is contrast. Nangongyu is gentle and generous, but her daughter keeps making noises like a shrew. Isn't it a waste of humiliation and being talked about? But Zhong Siyu's mind wasn't thinking fast enough. Seeing that Zhong Yun not only didn't deal with Nangongyu, but instead scolded herself, she immediately lowered her face and was very unhappy. "Yuer, please go out first." "I don't." "Then just be quiet." "Mommy." Zhong Siya shouted in dissatisfaction, and finally restrained his temper after receiving a silent and stern warning from Zhong Yun's eyes. She glared at Nangongyu angrily. Nangongyu watched the farce silently, laughing without saying a word. Zhong Yun put away her thoughts and concentrated on dealing with Nangongyu. "Nangongyu, I will call you Miss Nangong. Anything is fine, you can do whatever you want. I just heard that you want the shares of my Huo family." "What do you mean?" "Wait a minute, I'll show Mrs. Huo a video, maybe you'll understand." Nangongyu took out his mobile phone and showed the key clips to Zhong Yun. Zhong Yun changed her color upon hearing this and cast a questioning look at her daughter. Seeing Zhong Siya bow her head with a guilty conscience, she was convinced that this was the truth. Since Miss Nangong has come to us, she means that she sincerely wants to make peace, and I will compensate you as much as possible. My request, I believe Mrs. Huo should have listened to Miss Zhong's explanation just now. This is impossible. Nangongyu shook his head slightly. Mrs. Huo and Miss Zhong are indeed mother and daughter, and they actually said the same thing. But I also said that as long as it's about money, nothing is impossible. The fake smile on Zhong Yun's face gradually disappeared. Nangongyu added, Mrs. Huo married her only daughter into the Huo family. She must have lived a comfortable life these years, so she wouldn't want to break the status quo for a small video, right? Zhong Yun's face suddenly changed. She married her daughter into the Huo family and worked hard to gain a foothold. How could she let something like this threaten her status in the Huo family? The author has something to say. The winner is really clear. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Hixie. Chapter 1712. Chapter 1712. Mr. Huo wants to see her. If I change the conditions, I will satisfy you as much as possible. Mrs. Huo, I am a businessman, and what businessmen care about most is profit. You ask me to exchange terms, but what terms are more valuable than Huo's shares? Huo's is developing rapidly, and it is naturally the dream of many people to be able to invest in Huo's. Zhongyun is not very involved in the complicated internal affairs of Huo's company, but she also knows that shares should never be thrown away lightly. You also know the importance of shares. Even if I am willing to give it to you, once others find out, the reason will be traced. I can reach a private agreement with Mrs. Huo, as long as the agreement we sign is legally effective. Zhongyun became silent. She knew that Nangongyu came prepared, but she still couldn't take out the shares. Her shares are only part of the joint property given to her by her husband after marrying into the Huo family. Her situation in the Huo family was already uncomfortable. If she was accidentally discovered, everything would be over. Zhongyun gritted her teeth and proposed to cash in. It was not a large amount of money transferred to Nangongyu, but some real estate transferred to her name. Nangongyu expressed hesitation. Zhongyun had no choice but to keep increasing her chips. Over and over again, Nangongyu reluctantly agreed after finding a suitable value. Mrs. Huo is really generous. As long as our agreement takes effect, you will never mention what happened yesterday from now on. But when Nangongyu responded, Zhongyun recalled the value of his offer and suddenly regretted it. It's just that it's hard to recover. Even if she wants to go back on her word, Nangongyu won't allow it. Nangongyu was in a happy mood after getting what he wanted. The only headache was Beijiyu. Beijiyu was very concerned about her and refused to stop asking about what happened yesterday. She spent a lot of time talking and asked Ye Qingfeng to be a lobbyist to get the little girl settled. About Huo Yangzi, she was missing and didn't want Beijiyu to know about it. At least not yet. Nangongyu seems to have calculated everything correctly and may get the maximum benefit from it, but God doesn't want her to live in peace. She never expected that on the third day, Mr. Huo would come to her door in person. Even a smart person like Nangongyu would never have thought that Mr. Huo wanted to see her. Facing this veteran who once dominated the business world, she still felt a little nervous. She can talk about business affairs with ease, but she can't talk about private matters. I heard from Yangzi that you have unparalleled tea skills, so I chose this place. Does Miss Nangong still like it? The place Mr. Huo chose is naturally good. Can you make tea? Yes. After a pause, she took the initiative and said, if you don't mind, I can make you a cup of tea. Good. The two of them didn't talk too much. Nangongyu's movements when making tea were graceful but not fancy. It was a pleasure to watch her make tea. Mr. Huo has lived for most of his life and has met all kinds of people. The first time he saw Nangongyu, he knew that she was different. Whether it's making tea or speaking and behaving. After the tea was brewed, Mr. Huo took a sip and nodded with satisfaction. Nangongyu smiled slightly and took the teacup. Your tea is quite good. Thanks to Mr. Huo for being so considerate. I think you're a very cute girl. Don't call me Huo Lao. You are 1 year younger than my grandson Yangzi. You can call me Grandpa Huo after him. Hearing this, Nangongyu was slightly startled. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1713. Chapter 1713. Be my granddaughter-in-law. She reacted quickly and called out meekly, Grandpa Huo. As a businessman, it is instinct to adapt to changes. She is not so arrogant as to get to the bottom of things. On the contrary, it is more beneficial to their cooperation to build a relationship. As a result, Mr. Huo immediately changed his tune and called her you directly. The two of them talked about the tea ceremony. They had a common topic and the conversation was stress-free. You can occasionally hear the sound of two people talking and laughing in the tea room. The relationship between the old and the young is advancing rapidly at this moment. After some exchanges, Mr. Huo became more and more satisfied with Nangang Yu. Grandpa, I want to ask you a personal question. Grandpa Huo, please speak. Mr. Huo suddenly asked seriously, what do you think of my grandson Huo Yangzi? Nangang Yu replied without thinking, Mr. Huo is young and promising. Stop. As soon as he said one word of description, Mr. Huo interrupted displeasedly, you don't need to tell me these official words, I want to hear the truth. Nangang Yu knew that he could not be fooled, so he paused slightly and said, Mr. Huo is a good man with principles and bottom line. Although he once teased her, he also helped her at the most critical moment. She, Nangang Yu, has always made a distinction between right and wrong. She was really grateful that Huo Yangzi, who was known as a playboy, could let her go at that time. Mr. Huo smiled dumbly when he heard this. You are the first person to praise him like this. Grandpa Huo is joking, Mr. Huo's reputation is well known to everyone. Old man, I never joke. I can still tell the difference between what those people say outside and what they say is nonsense. Mr. Huo was very serious when he straightened his face. Nangang Yu secretly guessed the old man's thoughts, feeling a little worried in his heart. She is afraid. To be honest, I came to you today because of Yangzi. I have also heard some rumors about you. When I saw you today, you gave me a big surprise, even beyond my expectation. You girl, Grandpa, I like you very much, and Yangzi treats you very special. How about you consider becoming the grandson-in-law of my Huo family? Nangang Yu didn't expect Mr. Huo to be so direct. Are you kidding me? Having just met her once, do you think she is suitable to marry Huo Yangzi as your wife? The smile on his face can hardly be held back. Nangang Yu said tactfully, Grandpa Huo, if you think Yu is destined to you, you can contact her more often. You don't need to marry Mr. Huo. Mr. Huo smiled and shook his head, firming up his thoughts, I'm old, but I'm not old enough to mess around with each other. I saw you two young people interested in each other, so I wanted to give you a push. Grandpa Huo, I think you have misunderstood. Nangang Yu tried to explain that he had nothing to do with Huo Yangzi. But Mr. Huo said, on the night of my birthday, Yangzi took you away in front of everyone and said that he had no interest in you. Who would believe it? I know very well what my grandson's temperament is. He is not a person with overflowing sympathy. If you insist on saying that he is a good person, then he is only a good person for you. If Huo Yangzi is a good person, then he is only a good person belonging to Nangang Yu. Nangang Yu seemed to be shocked by Mr. Huo's words. She who had always been eloquent could only remain silent. You girl, think about it carefully, I will stay in S City for a while. After saying goodbye to Mr. Huo, Nangang Yu was still in a daze when he walked out of the tea house. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1714. Chapter 1714 She is using you. After saying goodbye to Mr. Huo, Nangang Yu was still in a daze when he walked out of the tea house. Why let her marry Huo Yangzi? This matter is really getting more and more complicated. Originally I thought Huo Yangzi had calmed down, but unexpectedly, an older man who was more difficult to deal with came. Mr. Huo also has a profound research on tea. He originally thought that he would become a close friend, but it turned out that he regarded her as his granddaughter-in-law. If Mr. Huo knew that she used what happened that day to threaten Zhong Siyu and make a profit, he might not be so satisfied with her. Alas, she sighed deeply as she stood on the street. Little did she know that while she was calculating her interests, someone was also calculating her feelings. Zhong Siyu was cheated by Nangong Yu, and she couldn't swallow this breath no matter what. She thought that since she couldn't defeat Nangong Yu in big things, she would look for another breakthrough. Huo Yangzi is interested in Nangong Yu, so she will give them a big gift. Thanks to Nangong Yu's recording pen, she was able to save more time and record the entire process of Nangong Yu and Zhong Yun's request for shares and other conditions being reached. Huo Yangzi doesn't like her, so she has nothing to fear. Just wait, if you don't make it easy for me, I, Zhong Siyu, won't make it easy for you either. She listened to Nangong Yu's harsh words in a loop, and found Huo Yangzi again. Because of the drugging incident last time, Huo Yangzi didn't look good on her when they met. Zhong Siyu smashed the jar and said, "Brother Yangzi, please be patient, I have something good for you. I don't think someone like you can come up with anything good." After saying that, Huo Yangzi asked Hian to drive her out. Zhong Siyu immediately pressed the play button of the recording, and Nangong Yu's voice came from the phone. She made a plan with ease to set a trap for Zhong Siyu and her daughter. He heard everything. Zhong Siyu smiled proudly, "Brother Yangzi, did you hear that? That woman can even trade things related to her own reputation for benefits." Huo Yangzi tilted his head and asked indifferently, "So what? How about it? Brother Yangzi, you are so smart, can't you see that this woman has ulterior motives? She is so scheming, just to attract your attention and take the opportunity to seduce her." Hearing the sarcasm, Huo Yangzi unconsciously defended her, "Zhong Siyu, please keep your mouth clean. Brother Yangzi, what's the use of being mean to me? The person who did those things was Nangong Yu. You can say that she has emerged from the mire and remained untainted. She has firmly established herself as the CEO of Nangong Group. She may have climbed into the beds of many people." Zhong Siyu said in a strange tone, "Not only that, I also heard that she is coaxing Grandpa into a circle now. Tell me how deeply troubled this woman is." Roll. After Huo Yangzi drove Zhong Siyu away, he overturned everything on the table. That woman, he defended her reputation and handed over the evidence with his own hands, but she only profited from it. As expected, the essence of a businessman is profit, and there is no sincerity at all, right? Nangong Yu has been having a headache recently. Mr. Huo invited her to drink tea when he had something to do. Thinking back to it, he was just like Huo Yangzi inviting her to talk about work when she had something to do. But it's not easy for her to refuse openly. Recently, not only do you have to deal with Mr. Huo, you also have to do something for Beiji Yu. Beiji Yu was on summer vacation and secretly entered his company through the assessment without Ye Qingfeng's back. During this period, she also asked her to help inquire about Ye Qingfeng. Nangong Yu knew the little girl's thoughts well and spent a lot of effort trying to help her find out Ye Qingfeng's thoughts. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1715. Chapter 1715. Huo Yangzi was kicked out of the house. It happened that Nangong Group recently had a business deal with Ye Group, so she personally invited Ye Qingfeng to discuss it. The two of them have a clear distinction between public and private affairs, and their collaborative conversations are extremely pleasant. Just when I came out, I met Mr. Huo inexplicably. There was no other way. As a junior, Nangong Yu had stepped forward to say hello and shouted, "Grandpa Huo." Ye Qingfeng also called him extremely politely, "Mr. Huo." Mr. Huo has been shrewd for most of his life. He can tell at a glance that these two people are excellent, and they seem to have a similar temperament. Don't mention it, the two of them standing together are quite eye-catching. If Huo Yangzi knew that her grandfather had such thoughts, she would probably be so angry that she would vomit blood. Mr. Huo appreciates talented people, but at this age, his greatest wish is the happiness of his grandson. Naturally, he can't look down on the person who treats his grandson as his number one love rival. "You girl, What are you doing? We just finished talking and were about to leave. I didn't expect to meet you, Grandpa Huo. Are you done talking? Does that mean you have free time now? Yes. Nangang Yu always felt that Mr. Huo was thinking about her again. Mr. Huo wanted her to marry Huo Yangzi, and he was afraid that he would target Ye Qingfeng. Brother Qingfeng, didn't you just say that you still have things to rush back to the company to deal with, otherwise, you can go first. Also good. He naturally understood Nangang Yu's euphemistic hints. Ye Qingfeng left, and Mr. Huo looked at her with a more friendly expression. You girl, are you interested in my grandson today? Nangang Yu. Yangzi works conscientiously every day now and has never gone out to flirt with women. He has money and looks. Do you really not think about such an outstanding man? Nangang Yu couldn't laugh or cry. Is Mr. Huo treating his grandson as a commodity? Grandpa Huo, Mr. Huo is very outstanding and there are countless women who want to marry him. Why do you always stare at me? I just like the way you reject him so straightforwardly. Nangang Yu took a deep breath. She has always been eloquent, but now she was defeated by an old man. Maybe it's because I respect the elderly too much. After Nangang Yu left, the people around Mr. Huo reminded him, Old man, your recent pursuit of Miss Nangong's whereabouts has been discovered by the young master. I found out that I can't make a living if I can't catch my wife. Mr. Huo is so angry when he mentions Huo Yangzi now that he feels that his grandson is not up to par. He has been unable to catch up with a woman for several months. He finally fell in love with a grandson's daughter-in-law, but in the end he despised his grandson. It's all because that brat knew how to flirt with women before, but now he's fine, and people think he's unclean. The old steward touched his nose. His young master was quite clean. Although there were many women around him, they were all just for fun, and none of them were serious. Only this time, Nangang Yu kicked the bucket. Master, please calm down. Do you want to go to the young master's villa tonight? Go. I will live there from now on. Go and kick him out. Well. The old steward thought that Mr. Huo was just talking, but he didn't expect that Huo Yangzi was really kicked out that night. The dignified Mr. Huo of the Huo company was kicked out of his own villa by his own grandfather? You brat, find a place to live by yourself. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1716. Chapter 1716. Xiao Yuer, please take me in. An hour later, Huo Yangzi stood alone in front of Nangang Yu's apartment. The light inside is on, indicating that the owner is not asleep yet. After a long time, he finally raised his phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. Nangang Yu just washed his hair and wiped it with a towel. Suddenly she heard a vibration in her hand. When she looked at the caller ID, it turned out to be Huo Yanxi. After hesitating for a moment, he pressed the answer button. Hello, I am Nangang Yu. I know you are Nangang Yu. Well, is there any reason for Mr. Huo to call so late? Xiao Yuer, let me ask you a question. She has emphasized twice the issue of Huo Yangzi's affectionate name for her, but the man's name was based entirely on his mood and could not be changed at all. Nangang Yu could only listen patiently. Mr. Huo, please speak. Huo Yangzi asked, if you met a homeless person on the road, would you help him? Within the scope of my ability, maybe I will give him appropriate help. Her answer can be said to be very broad. First, it must be within the scope of my ability. Second, the help should be appropriate. Third, she said that just maybe, not definitely. Housing from the mobile phone was Huo Yangzi's unique laughter, but it sounded a little different from the past. It seemed a little desolate. Xiao Yuer, I was kicked out by Grandpa. What does Mr. Huo mean by this? Literally, I am homeless now, right at your doorstep. He just didn't say the 3 words please take care to her clearly. She stopped wiping her hair, and the wet droplets of water flowed down the tips of her wet hair and into the nape of her neck. He heard Huo Yangzi's voice coming from the mobile phone again, Xiao Yuer, come out and meet me. That high-spirited man sounded a little pitiful when he spoke at this moment. She wondered if she had heard wrongly. Until she heard the doorbell. Nangong Yu held a towel in one hand and a mobile phone in the other and walked slowly toward the door. He saw Huo Yangzi's enlarged face from the small camera next to the door. Still so handsome. Huo Yangzi, what are you doing in front of my house? Finally, she couldn't stand it any longer and called out his full name. Please take me in. You have so many houses, do you still need me to take you in? I remember you said before that you bought all the ones next door, right? I lied to you. Huo Yangzi seemed to have heard something interesting and smiled very happily, so you believe me so much. Nangong Yu. This is simply impossible to talk about. She thought that a man like Huo Yangzi who told the truth would not even bother to lie. Huo Yangzi smiled and asked, then I said I was homeless, why didn't you believe me? Mr. Huo is really joking. Nangong Yu had a complicated mood. I'm not kidding, it's true this time, Grandpa kicked me out. Why? Huo Yangzi waved and shrugged, Grandpa said that you don't like me. He thinks I'm useless, so he won't let me go back. Nangong Yu seemed to be choked. She didn't know that Huo Yangzi was so strictly controlled by Grandpa Huo. It's so late, you'd better go find a hotel and rest quickly. Grandpa won't let me stay in the hotel. What? Grandpa has said hello to every hotel, but no one will let me stay. There are so many hotels, so we can't take care of everyone, right? He installed a locator on me. Wherever I go, he will send someone to drive me out. The author has something to say. Do you think Mr. Huo is quite cute? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1717. Chapter 1717. Mr. Huo and Xiao Yuer are in the kitchen. He installed a locator on me. Wherever I go, he will send someone to drive me out. Nangong Yu really didn't expect that Huo Yangzi would be forced into such misery by Grandpa Huo. Most likely biological. Now that you know there's a locator, just throw it away. Grandpa will scold me for being unfilial. Then if you come to my place, Grandpa Huo will know about it? Yeah, only here he won't kick me out. Nangong Yu felt as if he was being relied on by a certain grandfather and grandson. The two of them talked for a long time on their mobile phones, but they were actually separated by a door. Of course, Nangong Yu didn't open the door for him easily. He even hung up the phone after persuading him to leave. Huo Yangzi did not call her again. According to her understanding of Huo Yangzi, if Huo Yangzi came for real, he would be entangled constantly, but since he didn't now, he might just tease her and leave after a few words. Nangong Yu thought so. After she dried her hair and everything was done, she went to take a look at the camera at the door when she was getting ready to go to bed. I didn't expect Huo Yangzi to be still there. The man was sitting on the ground outside the door, leaning against the wall, and seemed to be asleep. With a sudden thought, she unlocked the door. Huo Yangzi. She shouted softly, but no one responded. Nangong Yu took 2 steps forward, squatted in front of Huo Yangzi, and pushed him gently. Huo Yangzi, are you asleep? Huo Yangzi suddenly opened his eyes were clear, and he definitely didn't look like he had just been awakened. You lied to me. No, it's just that I don't have the strength. How come? I worked overtime in the afternoon and got kicked out before I even had a meal. It is really heartbreaking to think that a majestic and domineering president has been reduced to this stage. Nangong Yu sighed softly and finally relaxed, come with me. This is the first time Huo Yangzi has entered an apartment that belongs entirely to women. The layout here is all in a simple style, with beige walls, which matches Nangongyu's gentle personality very well. The things placed in the apartment are neat and tidy, not obsessive-compulsive, but clean and tidy. It can be seen that the owner's quality of life is extremely high. Do you eat noodles? Are you down there? Ken. Cooking rice is too troublesome, here is the simplest and fastest way. Nangongyu walked into the kitchen and operated it skillfully. Huo Yangzi followed and looked at her silently. Thinking of this woman cooking for herself, Huo Yangzi became extremely peaceful in her heart. It doesn't mean the tranquility without any emotional fluctuations, but the tranquility in which he truly feels a happy life for the first time. This feeling is so good. Can you eat tomatoes and eggs? Can. Okay, wait a moment. Nangongyu took out tomatoes and eggs from the refrigerator, broke the eggs into a bowl and stirred them. Nangongyu suddenly looked back at Huo Yangzi, smiled slightly, and directed him to do things. Wash the tomatoes for me. This is the first time Huo Yangzi has stepped into the kitchen and participated in cooking. He knows how to wash things and turn on the tap to rinse. Nangongyu added, both the cutting board and kitchen knife need to be washed, and then the tomatoes should be sliced. Huo Yangzi wanted to refuse, but when she heard her speak, she couldn't say the word to refuse. So there is a scene of Huo Yangzi, who is so majestic outside, being hard to reach by two tomatoes. He was holding a knife and cutting tomatoes, but his hands were shaking and he couldn't cut them well. Ha ha ha, Huo Yangzi, you don't know how to chop vegetables. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1718. Chapter 1718, Marry me and I will go home. Ha ha ha, Huo Yangzi, you don't know how to chop vegetables. Don't laugh, if you have the ability, come and do it. I'll teach you. Nangongyu didn't accept his provocation. He walked to the side and taught him how to hold down the tomatoes and use the knife. Huo Yangzi just had no experience in cutting vegetables, but he understood it as soon as he was told and quickly cut two tomatoes into slices. Nangongyu started cooking noodles, and the process was clear at a glance. Huo Yangzi, remember, if you don't know how to cook in the future, you can eat by yourself. Why should I be alone, isn't there you? Nangongyu suddenly looked back and met his burning gaze. At first she didn't hear clearly when the noodles were being placed, but after replaying it in her mind, she understood what Huo Yangzi meant. What nonsense is he talking about? She was kind enough to take him in for one night, but he actually wanted her to cook for him in the future? Huo Yangzi, don't talk nonsense. I'm not talking nonsense. My grandfather and I both have good tastes because he and his grandfather both felt that Nangongyu was suitable to marry Huo Yangzi. Nangongyu was still a little happy after being praised from both sides. After all, who doesn't like to hear good things? You go out and wait, I'll be fine soon. Don't you want me to study? I don't see how I will study completely in the end. Of course Huo Yangzi must seize every minute and every second with her, especially such a warm scene like now is simply rare. Nangongyu didn't think as much as he did. He just thought that the words sounded reasonable, so he nodded, okay, then you watch. The noodles are cooked and the ingredients are added. They all smell delicious. The noodles were placed on the small table, and the two sat facing each other. Nangongyu looked at him expectantly and asked, is it delicious? Huo Yangzi swallowed a sip and nodded. It's really fragrant. As long as it's made by Xiaoyuer, it's delicious. Don't tell me this. She couldn't stand these fancy words. Huo Yangzi will stop as soon as he sees fit. Nangongyu asked, you said Grandpa Huo kicked you out, when will he let you go back? It's probably when he catches up with his favorite granddaughter-in-law. Ah. Isn't she the grandson-in-law that Mr. Huo likes? Stop joking, go back and have a good talk with Grandpa Huo tomorrow and explain our relationship to him clearly. Oh, Huo Yangzi raised the corners of his lips, tell me, what is the relationship between the two of us? Do we need to make it clear? Seems to have no relationship that requires explanation. Huo Yangzi then pressed, so, why don't you find a boyfriend? Nangang paused and discussed with him seriously. Nangang, let me ask you a question. Huo Yangzi, you said. Nangang, can I do laundry? Although he didn't know why he asked such a question, Huo Yangzi still answered according to his own thoughts, there is a washing machine. She asked again, can I cook? Huo Yangzi looked at the bowl of noodles at hand and nodded, you can. Then do you think I can make money? Of course, the strong woman in charge of the entire Nangang group has no doubts about her ability. Since I can solve my own problems in life and I don't lack material things, then why should I find a boyfriend? Let him stand beside me and applaud me. Ahem. Huo Yangzi almost choked on a mouthful of eggs when she heard this. If you marry me, you can be a rice bug with peace of mind. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1719. Chapter 1719. I, Huo Yangzi, will not spend a woman's money even if I starve to death. In this way, Huo Yangzi almost planned to stay at Nangang house. I didn't even go to the company the next day. When Nangang left in the morning, he saw Huo Yangzi sitting on the sofa watching TV. He was very familiar with her, so she didn't mind the electricity bill. When are you leaving? Grandpa won't let me go to the company now. Huo Yangzi lies as often as he wants. Then what are you going to do now? Let me hide outside for 2 days, and wait until the old man figures it out and see if he can let me go back. Is that so? Nangang was dubious. How can a man with a strong personality like Huo Yangzi, who is used to taking control, be so obedient? Is it because he is very filial? Then where are you going today? Didn't you already take me in? It's not appropriate for a man and a woman to live together in the same room. Huo Yangzi thought of what Nangang said last night about the futility of having a boyfriend, and immediately expressed her sincerity, I can cook noodles for you. Really, she expressed deep doubts about a man who couldn't even cut a tomato. Nangang, please don't question a genius with an IQ of 190. Forget it, she was too lazy to pursue those matters. Just when Huo Yangzi thought she had compromised, he saw her take out a card from her bag and said, I lent this to you. You can use the money to find other solutions. I believe these problems are not difficult for someone with an IQ of 190 genius. She used his words to counter-press. Huo Yangzi felt like he shot himself in the foot. In order to stay here, he righteously rejected Nangang card. How can I, Huo Yangzi, a 7-foot-tall man, spend a woman's money? I said, this is considered a loan, you can just pay me back later. That's absolutely not okay. I, Huo Yangzi, never spend women's money. Nangang rubbed his brows and found that the current shameless Huo Yangzi was even more difficult to deal with than the enigmatic Huo Yangzi back then. Forget it, I'll help you again. Just think of it as repaying his last favor. Nangang gave a few brief instructions and then went to the company. Huo Yangzi walked around the apartment carefully. Of course, he would never enter a closed door at will. There are limits to a human being. He found that Nangang apartment was much better than his big, cold villa where a person lived alone. The only thing that annoyed him was that he found several picture frames in the living room. One is of Nangang herself, the other is of Nangang and her parents. All 3 members of the family have outstanding looks and look very happy, There is also a photo frame with 6 young people in it. That was taken about a few years ago. Nangongyu looks more youthful than now, but he was already mature at that time. He has seen all 4 of them in the photo, including Nangongyu, Ye Qingfeng, Beijiyu and Han Qi. I heard that the Nangong family has a very good relationship with the Ye family, so the other 2 strange girls must be Ye Qingfeng's 2 sibling sisters. They have such a good relationship. Huo Yangzi suddenly felt jealous of the good times they had spent together, even knowing each other for so long before him. In the photo, Beijiyu was still a little girl at that time. In the photo, she was picked up by Ye Qingfeng. Their faces were touching and they seemed to have a good relationship. Huo Yangzi suddenly laughed. He seemed to have discovered something. The breeze is clear at night and the moon is shining in the north. Qingfeng Jiyu, this name is really interesting. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 1720. Chapter 1720. She is so gentle that it's unreasonable. Nangongyu came back from get off work and went in to change his shoes as usual. Why is there an extra pair of men's shoes at the door? Ah! She remembered that the difficult Huo Yangzi was still staying at her house. Huo Yangzi. Where are the people? Nangongyu looked around, and finally heard a ding-ding-dong-dong sound coming from the kitchen. She trotted over and took a look. Huo Yangzi almost demolished her kitchen. Huo Yangzi, what are you doing? There was a fire in the pot, and Nangongyu quickly held the pot lid to cover it and turned off the fire. Nangongyu raised his eyes and scanned the kitchen. He found a lot of water stains on the cutting board, a few drops of oil on the stove, and all the pots and pans were messed up. Are you trying to tear down my kitchen? Huo Yangzi was like a child who had done something wrong, standing there without saying a word. Huo Yangzi. I did not do it on purpose. Huh, you're really not fit to be in the kitchen. Xiao Yuer, don't be angry. I'm not angry. There is almost no word angry in her dictionary. How about calling a housekeeping aunt to come over and take care of it? No need, just clean it up yourself. After saying that, she started cleaning and organizing the kitchen utensils. Huo Yangzi volunteered, I'll help you. Nangongyu hesitated for a moment. Huo Yangzi knew that she was in the wrong, so she watched her face carefully, thinking that she must think that she was not successful enough, but more likely to fail. At this time, Nangongyu spoke again and the voice sounded like the sound of nature, please help me clean those pots and dishes first, and then put them back where they were. Huo Yangzi was really surprised. He had never thought that there would be such a beautiful woman in the world, who was excellent, independent, and had a ridiculously good temper. You'd better not go into the kitchen in the future. There are people cooking for you anyway. If you have to go into the kitchen, you must not be as reckless as this time. Be careful when opening the fire and putting oil in, so as not to hurt yourself. Huo Yangzi paused slightly and asked, you don't blame me? What's your fault? Nangongyu didn't catch the point of his question. Huo Yangzi asked tentatively, I made your kitchen so bad, are you really not angry at all? You are even worried about my safety. Nangongyu rinsed the wet towel with clean water and turned off the faucet. The surrounding area became very quiet. She smiled softly and said, it's useless to be angry about something like this that has already happened and is irreversible. For example, people's health is more important than things that can be bought with money. She spoke slowly and her hands never stopped moving. Those things that were arranged in a chaotic manner seemed to become as smooth as new through her hands. She was packing her things, and Huo Yangzi was watching her secretly. What was Huo Yangzi thinking at that moment? He is bound to get this woman. Suddenly he was very grateful to Mr. Huo for driving him out, but he didn't know how long he could use this excuse to stay. If you really can't go back during this period, then I will leave this place to you for now, and I will go home and live there. Isn't this your home? This can only be regarded as a place to stay. A place with my family is my home. Her parents are still waiting for her to come home for dinner. Huo Yangzi secretly said something was wrong. In this case, what's the point of him living here? And if Nangongyu goes back to live at Nangong's house, he will have no chance to meet him. Forget it, don't go back, I'll just leave. I've been bothering you for the past 2 days. End of this chapter.